A millionaire walked into his ex-fiancée's wedding, but he was not alone. By his side stood a woman no one expected, a homeless stranger. Why would he bring her here? The bride's face turned pale. Guests whispered in shock. Then she leaned in and whispered something, and the entire room froze. But who was she? And why did she look so familiar? What happened next no one saw coming. A name he thought he had buried in the past. But there it was, printed in gold. William's fingers tightened around the wedding invitation, his jaw clenching as he read the name. Olivia, the woman who once whispered promises of forever, before choosing wealth over love. But why invite him now? To gloat? To remind him of what he lost? His lips curled into a smirk. Does she expect me to sit there and watch her win? His penthouse stretched before him. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, a skyline view that should have made him feel invincible. Instead, it felt like a cage. A fortune at his fingertips, yet an emptiness he could never escape. A voice snapped him back. His best friend, chuckling. Going alone? You will look pathetic. Bring someone unforgettable. His grip on the invitation loosened. That is when he saw her. A woman standing at the edge of the street, not begging, not lost, just watching. Eyes that did not belong in this world, yet held the weight of someone who once did. He should have kept driving. But fate had already decided otherwise. The city moved in a blur, neon lights flickering against the rain-slicked streets. William's car slowed, his gaze catching something or someone. A woman stood near the sidewalk, still as stone. No sign, no plea, no desperation in her eyes. She just watched, like the world had once belonged to her, and now she was watching it pass by. He pulled over, stepping out, curiosity outweighing logic. Do you need money? His voice was steady, but something about her presence made him second-guess why he was even asking. She barely turned. Do you need company? Her words, sharp and unshaken, cut through the air like a challenge. William expected something else, gratitude, surprise, maybe hesitation. Instead, her smirk unsettled him. People like you love playing hero, do you not? He should have walked away. But he did not. She was testing him, and he had never been one to back down. This was no ordinary woman, and something told him this was no ordinary night. William leaned against his car, arms crossed, watching the woman before him. She had no name, no history, at least none that he knew of. But she had something more dangerous. Confidence. I will make this easy, he said. One night. One event. You play the part, and in return you get security. Her laughter was sharp, unexpected. You think I need that? She stepped closer, the distance between them shrinking. You need me more than I need this. His jaw tightened. He was not used to people challenging him. Not like this. He was the one with wealth, the one in control. But in her eyes, he was just another man trying to buy something that could not be bought. Still, she tilted her head, considering. All right, she finally said. Let us see how far this game goes. The car moved through the city in silence. William waited for the usual questions. The curiosity. But there was nothing. She stared out the window, unfazed by the leather seats, the city lights reflecting in her eyes. Like she had seen all this before. You are quiet, he said. She smirked. I do not waste words. His grip on the steering wheel tightened. Something about her felt too familiar. And that was the most unsettling part of all. The salon doors swung open, and within seconds, the staff rushed toward her. They expected hesitation, perhaps discomfort. But she stood still, unwavering. William observed from a distance. Most people in her position would have been overwhelmed, stunned by the chandeliers, the polished floors, the luxury. But she barely reacted. The stylist worked swiftly, combing through tangled strands, brushing away the remnants of her forgotten past. But as the transformation unfolded, something gnawed at him. She was not amazed. She was remembering. The final touch, a gown, silk against her skin. She ran a hand over the fabric, her fingers pressing lightly against the embroidery. Not with awe, with recognition. When she turned to face him, he expected shock. Instead, she met his gaze with an expression he could not quite place. She was exactly where she was meant to be. William studied her, waiting for the usual reaction. Disbelief, gratitude, maybe even tears. He got none of that. Instead, she smiled. Not the uncertain, hesitant kind. No, this was a smile of someone reclaiming something that was once hers. Satisfied? She asked, tilting her head slightly. There was something in her voice, something sharp, almost amused. For the first time, William felt it. That unsettling sensation creeping in. He was the one being played. The car moved through the city's dimly lit streets, but William's mind was elsewhere. The way she walked into that salon, not hesitant, not overwhelmed. The way she sat in that chair, letting the stylists work, not with amazement, but with understanding. This was not the reaction of someone being introduced to wealth. This was someone reclaiming it. His fingers tapped the wheel, eyes shifting to the woman beside him. She sat in silence, staring at the city rushing past. No questions. No curiosity. Just calm acceptance. Who are you? The words slipped out before he could stop them. She smirked. That is a dangerous question. A chill ran down his spine. The pieces of the puzzle were falling into place, and he did not like what they were forming. This was not a transformation. It was a return. And he had just invited something or someone back into a world that had long since erased her. The moment William stepped inside, the air shifted. Eyes followed him, but only for a second. Because then, they saw her. A murmur rippled through the room. The clinking of glasses stilled. Conversations ended mid-sentence. At the center of it all, Olivia. Her laughter, light and effortless just moments ago, died on her lips. Her fingers tightened around the stem of her champagne glass. Who is she? A question unspoken, yet echoing across the grand hall. William walked forward with quiet confidence, his steps measured, calculated. But he was no longer the main attraction. Isabella was. Dressed in elegance, she carried herself like she had been here before. Like she belonged. And that was what unsettled them most. Guests exchanged glances. Olivia's fiancé leaned in, whispering something in her ear, but she did not respond. Her gaze was fixed, locked onto the woman beside William. The past had just walked into the room. And by the way Olivia's hands trembled, she knew exactly who Isabella was. For just a fraction of a second, Olivia's polished mask slipped. A flicker, so quick, so subtle, that only someone watching closely would have caught it. Recognition? Or was it fear? William saw it. He saw everything. He did not speak. He did not need to. The moment had already shifted in his favor. The woman who once held all the power now stood frozen. The glass in her hand trembled, and the carefully constructed walls around her began to crack. Olivia inhaled sharply, forcing composure. A practiced smile returned to her lips, but her eyes betrayed her. William did not bother hiding his amusement. For the first time, she was the one unsure, unsteady. And then there was Isabella. Unfazed. Poised. Gliding through the crowd as if she had walked these halls 100 times before. She did not gawk at the luxury, did not flinch at the curious whispers. She belonged. And that was the most unsettling part of all. Olivia approached, her movements controlled, her expression unreadable. Her voice, smooth yet tight, carried the weight of something unspoken. William, you came. Not a greeting. Not a surprise. A test. William held her gaze, unfazed, but before he could speak, Isabella did. A slow, deliberate movement as she extended her hand. A silent power move. Isabella. A pleasure. Her voice was calm, effortless, yet beneath it, a subtle challenge. For a brief moment, Olivia hesitated. A flicker in her expression. Barely noticeable, but William caught it. Then her fingers clasped Isabella's, a handshake too firm, too controlled. The room was silent, but the real conversation had already begun. Olivia tilted her head slightly, her practiced smile never faltering. A perfect display of composure, controlled, rehearsed, effortless. What a stunning choice, William, she said smoothly, her eyes flicking over Isabella's gown. It must be refreshing for her, stepping into a world like this. A compliment wrapped in a dagger. William waited for a reaction. A flicker of discomfort. A sign of hesitation. But Isabella did not even blink. She smiled. Not forced, not defensive, just enough to show control. On the contrary, Isabella replied, her voice steady, unwavering. Some worlds never truly leave you. The room grew tense. William caught it now. Olivia's hand curled ever so slightly, her breath just a second too shallow. She was rattled. Not by William's presence, but by Isabella's. For the first time in her perfectly curated world, Olivia was not sure she held the power. The ballroom, once a symphony of laughter and effortless charm, had found a new focal point. And it was not Olivia. Isabella did not just stand among them, she owned the space. Every movement was deliberate. Every glance measured. Women, draped in diamonds and silk, whispered behind manicured hands, eyes flickering toward her with fascination. The men watched too, their expressions unreadable. William leaned back, observing. This was not what Olivia had planned. A glass in hand, she laughed at some joke, too loud, too forced. A desperate grasp at the attention slipping through her fingers. But no one was looking at her anymore. Isabella turned, her eyes meeting Olivia's. Not with arrogance, not with challenge. Just presence. Unshaken. Unmoved. And in that moment, William saw it. Olivia, once untouchable, was losing. Not because Isabella fought for the spotlight, but because she never needed it to begin with. William had expected control. A calculated move, a moment to remind Olivia of what she had lost. But this was different. Isabella was not just fitting in. She was rewriting the rules. Across the room, Olivia's laughter had faded into silence. Her polished mask still held, but her fingers clenched slightly around the stem of her glass. A tell. A crack in her armor. William watched her closely. Why did she look rattled? And why did Isabella look comfortable? As if she had walked these halls before. As if this world was not foreign to her but forgotten. Isabella turned, catching Olivia's stare, and in that moment, something shifted. No words were spoken, yet an entire conversation unfolded between them. William exhaled, slow and measured. He had come here to make a point. But as Isabella's eyes flickered with something unreadable, he felt a quiet realization settle in. Perhaps Olivia was not the only one being played tonight. The sound of crystal glasses clinking fills the air, laughter weaving through the grand dining hall. The night flows effortlessly, the elite engaged in idle chatter until a pause. A man, older, distinguished, his suit tailored to perfection, halts mid-conversation. His gaze locks onto Isabella. Eyes narrowing, brows pulling together. A flicker of something, recognition? Or disbelief? William watches, his curiosity sharpening. Olivia, across the table, stiffens ever so slightly. The man speaks. I know you from somewhere, do I not? The air shifts. Conversations around them dull, attention drifting toward Isabella. A moment stretches, fragile, hanging between them. Isabella does not flinch. A slow, effortless smile curves her lips. Perhaps, she says, voice smooth, unreadable. But memories can be unreliable, do you not think? The man studies her, the weight of his stare pressing against the quiet confidence she exudes. Something unspoken lingers between them. A secret buried, clawing its way to the surface. William glances at Olivia. Her mask is still intact, but her grip on her silverware is just a little too tight. For the first time tonight, William wonders who is truly in control. A ripple of silence spreads through the room. The weight of a single question hangs in the air. I know you from somewhere, do I not? The guest's voice is steady yet searching. Eyes linger on Isabella, waiting for confirmation or denial. A beat. Then, Olivia's voice slices through the tension. A little too sharp, a little too fast. Impossible. She laughs, but it is forced hollow. She is just William's date. The words land awkwardly, meant to dismiss but doing the opposite. Isabella does not react. No shift in posture, no flicker of doubt. Just that same measured poise, as if she was waiting for this. William watches closely now. The unraveling has begun. Olivia lifts her glass, but her fingers tighten around the stem. White-knuckled. Isabella finally speaks. Just a date. A slow smile curves her lips. What an interesting assumption. A pause. The silence stretches, thick with implications. Olivia swallows, but it is not the champagne she tastes. It is fear. The crystal glasses gleam under the warm glow of the chandeliers. Soft murmurs ripple across the table, the laughter still lingering. Then Isabella lifts her glass. A hush settles, not from tradition, but from something unspoken. Her eyes sweep the room, calm, deliberate. But beneath the poise, there is something else. Something unsettling. Actually, her voice is smooth, measured. I used to be someone. William stiffens. The chatter dies. Olivia's fingers tighten around her glass. A slow smile forms on Isabella's lips, but there is no warmth in it. But I lost everything, she continues, letting the words settle. Thanks to this family. A sharp intake of breath. Forks freeze midair. The air shifts, heavier now, laced with tension. Across the table, an older man clears his throat, forced politeness masking his unease. I am sure you are mistaken, dear. The words are empty, brittle. Isabella tilts her head slightly. Am I? William's jaw tightens. He did not come here for this. But now he is trapped in it. A ripple of unease spreads. And suddenly the game has changed. A crystal fork clatters against fine china. The sound rings through the silence like a warning. Across the table, a guest stares, his breath caught mid-sentence. His eyes lock onto Isabella, recognition flickering like a long-buried memory clawing its way to the surface. You are Isabella Deo. The room stills. A ripple of shock spreads. Someone inhales sharply. Another guest shifts in their seat, uneasy. William's gaze snaps toward Isabella. What are you talking about? His voice is even, but there is something else beneath it. A crack in his composure. Olivia grips her glass tighter. The knuckles of her fingers turn pale. Isabella does not look away. Instead, she smiles. But it is not the kind of smile that reassures. It is the kind that unsettles. And for the first time tonight, the game is no longer in William's hands. A hush falls over the room. Every pair of eyes is on Isabella. She does not flinch. Her fingers trace the rim of her glass, slow and deliberate. You want the truth? Her voice is steady, sharp. Then let us start at the beginning. A murmur ripples through the crowd. William watches, his expression unreadable. Olivia stiffens. My father, Isabella continues, was a man of power, a man of vision. He built an empire from nothing. Respected, trusted, until one day it all crumbled. His name dragged through the dirt, his fortune seized, his legacy erased. A breathless silence. A guest shifts in their seat. Isabella tilts her head slightly, gaze locking onto Olivia. And who orchestrated it? Her tone turns pointed, precise. Who ensured that the world believed he was a fraud? Who whispered lies in the right ears? Forged documents, manufactured scandal. Olivia's grip tightens around her glass. The delicate stem trembles. You, Isabella says, voice like a blade. Your family. The air turns heavy. The weight of unspoken truths presses down on the table. A fork clatters to the floor. William exhales, his jaw clenched. Olivia swallows hard, but the room already knows. Isabella leans forward, a slow smile curling at the edges of her lips. The past never stays buried forever. A nervous laugh escapes Olivia's lips, but it is forced, brittle. That is ridiculous, she says, waving a dismissive hand. That was years ago. The words hang in the air, but they do not land the way she wants. Across the table, Isabella's expression hardens. The warmth that had once played at the edges of her lips is gone. Now there is only steel in her voice. Yes, Isabella says, her voice controlled, sharp. And I never forgot. The atmosphere shifts. The once lively hum of conversation has died. Crystal glasses sit untouched. Even the air itself seems heavier, charged. William's gaze snaps to Olivia. His jaw tightens. His eyes darken. Tell me she is lying, he demands. Olivia's throat moves as she swallows hard. Her grip tightens around the delicate stem of her glass. She starts, but the words fail her. The silence stretches. The weight of unspoken truths presses in. Isabella does not look away. You took everything from my family. You crushed my father. Watched as they dragged him through the dirt. You smiled as my world burned. A sharp inhale echoes across the room. William's hands clench into fists. Isabella, he says, his voice a low warning. Tell me everything. Olivia's fingers tremble. Her perfect mask is slipping. The cracks are showing. For the first time in years, she is no longer in control. A hush falls over the room as Isabella slowly rises. Her voice is calm, deliberate. How many of you, she asks, her gaze sweeping across the table, have invested in the Harrington Empire? A ripple moves through the crowd. Eyes shift. Hands tighten around glasses. No one speaks, but the answer is written on every face. Isabella's lips curve into something that is not quite a smile. That is what I thought. Olivia stiffens, her fingers curling into fists on the tablecloth. This is absurd, she snaps, forcing a laugh. What are you even implying? Isabella turns, her eyes locking onto Olivia's. I am not implying anything. I am stating a fact. A murmur rises among the guests. The tension thickens. William leans forward, his expression unreadable. Isabella, he says quietly, what are you doing? She does not look at him. Instead, she lifts a small envelope from her bag and places it on the table. Proof, she says. The word lands like a hammer. Several guests lean in, whispering among themselves. Someone clears their throat. Another shifts uncomfortably in their seat. Olivia's smile falters. There is no proof, she hisses. You are bluffing. Isabella tilts her head. Am I? Slowly, methodically, she pulls out the first page. A legal document. Then another. Bank statements. Correspondence. Names. Dates. Transactions. The color drains from Olivia's face. Your family, Isabella continues, framed my father, had him ruined, disgraced him so that you could rise higher. A sharp gasp echoes from the far end of the table. Someone drops a fork. William's jaw tightens. Olivia, he says, his voice dangerously low. Tell me this is a lie. She does not answer. Isabella presses forward. Do you want to hear the names? The ones who helped? The ones who profited? A man at the table clears his throat. This cannot be true. But it is. Olivia pushes back from the table. This is over, she says, her voice shaking. I do not have to sit here and... Isabella takes one step forward. You are right, she says. It is over. For you. The room is silent. For the first time, Olivia has lost. The laughter that once filled the grand dining hall fades into uneasy murmurs. Crystal glasses tremble in uncertain hands, and the hum of whispered conversation spreads like a storm brewing beneath the surface. The guests shift in their seats, their gazes bouncing between Isabella and Olivia. For years, Olivia had ruled this world. Tonight, it was slipping through her fingers. Her forced smile flickers, falters. She cannot let them believe it. Not after all she has built. Ridiculous, she says, her voice tight. Lies. But her hands betray her, gripping the table's edge so tightly her knuckles turn white. Isabella does not move, does not blink. You can call it whatever you want, she says softly. But they know the truth now. A ripple of unease spreads. A woman clears her throat. A man shifts in his seat, rubbing his temple. Olivia lets out a hollow laugh. You expect them to believe you? She scoffs. After all these years? A beat of silence. Then William speaks. His voice is quiet, but it cuts through the room like a blade. After all these years, he says, his eyes never leaving Olivia. Maybe we should have asked more questions. A sharp exhale leaves Olivia's lips. You. But William is already shaking his head. Tell me she is lying. Olivia opens her mouth, but the words do not come. For the first time in her life, she is out of moves. She stands abruptly, chair scraping against marble. I will not sit here and be humiliated, she hisses. Then leave, Isabella replies, voice calm. But you will not outrun the truth. A heavy silence. One by one, the guests lower their glasses. Hands that once applauded Olivia now fold in quiet judgment. She was their queen. Now she was nothing more than a woman caught in her own web. The weight of it crashes over her. She turns on her heel, her steps sharp, hurried. The door swings open, then slams shut behind her. Isabella exhales, slow and steady. William does not move. His expression unreadable. A question lingers in the air. Unspoken but undeniable. If Olivia had built her world on lies, what else was hiding beneath the surface? A single question drifts through the air, barely more than a breath. Could it be true? The weight of those words spreads like wildfire. The once lively conversations dull into hushed murmurs, scattered voices intertwining like threads of an unraveling secret. At the far end of the table, a senator leans toward his wife, voice low, cautious. Her father was powerful once, before it all collapsed. His wife exhales sharply, her eyes shifting between Isabella and Olivia. A ripple of unease moves through the guests, some exchanging uncertain glances, others gripping their glasses a little too tightly. The mention of Isabella's father, a name buried beneath time and scandal, pulls at something deep within the room. The past was not forgotten. It had only been waiting for its moment to return. Across the table, Olivia remains still, her spine rigid, her fingers tightening around the silverware. It is happening. The unraveling. The moment she feared. She draws a slow breath, steadying herself, but it does not help. Her mind races back, years ago, when her family made sure Isabella's world burned to ashes. She believed it was buried, that it was over. But now before her, Isabella stands unshaken. And the room is listening. For the first time in her life, Olivia is powerless. A cold realization settles in. The truth no longer belongs to her. It belongs to everyone watching. Something shifts inside William. It is not anger. It is not betrayal. It is something far more unsettling. Respect. For the first time, he sees Isabella not as a pawn in someone else's game, but as the one who had been controlling the board all along. He had thought he was leading her into this world, introducing her to its power, its influence. But now, as he watches the silent command in her posture, the steady way she holds every gaze in the room, he understands. She was never here to be led. She had been leading him. His breath is slow, measured, as he studies her, the sharp precision of her words, the way she dismantled everything Olivia had built with nothing but the truth. It was not an accident. It was a reckoning. His voice is quieter than he expects when he speaks. You planned all of this. Isabella does not look at him, not yet. Her gaze remains fixed on the table, on the shifting expressions of the guests, on the slow unraveling of Olivia's world. Then finally she turns to him. No, William. A pause. A slow, deliberate smile. I won. And he realizes. She is right. A slow, deliberate movement. Isabella reaches into her bag and places a thick folder onto the table. A single motion, silent yet deafening. Eyes lock onto it, the weight of its presence pressing against the air. Her voice is steady, unwavering. Everything you did. Every lie. Every betrayal. It is all in here. A flicker of panic flashes across Olivia's face. Her fingers tremble slightly as they tighten around the table's edge. But she does not move to open it. She will not. Because she knows. Knows what is inside. Knows there is no escaping it now. A murmur spreads through the guests. Uncertainty. Fear. Betrayal. A senator shifts uncomfortably in his seat, his wife whispering sharply in his ear. Isabella does not need to explain. The truth is right in front of them. She tilts her head slightly, waiting. Watching. Olivia swallows hard. This is ridiculous. Lies. But her voice lacks its usual confidence. She is not fighting the accusations. She is fighting the truth. Isabella steps closer. Then open it. Silence. Heavy. Unforgiving. A beat passes. Then another. Olivia does not move. She will not. Because she has already lost. A slow rustle of paper. Page after page turns beneath his fingers. The weight of truth sinking in with every line. Olivia watches, her breath shallow, hands clenched in her lap. She knows what is coming. Knows there is no stopping it now. Her fiancé's jaw tightens. His shoulders square. Finally, he exhales low, controlled. His voice is calm. Too calm. I do not marry liars. The room stills. A breathless pause. His words slice through the air like cold steel. Olivia's lips part, but nothing comes out. She reaches forward, desperate, grasping. Wait, please. But he is already rising. Already turning. No hesitation. No second glance. A groom who once stood at her side, now walking away. And this time there is no returning. Silence. A heavy, expectant stillness blankets the room. All eyes linger on Isabella. She does not gloat. Does not smile. Instead, she simply stands. Slow. Poised. Unshaken. William watches her. His expression unreadable. Something shifts in his gaze. Respect? Admiration? Maybe something more. But Isabella does not wait for answers. She exhales softly, shoulders light, as if an unseen weight has lifted. I think I am done here. Her voice is calm, steady, final. No anger, no desperation, just certainty. And with that she turns. Not a glance backward, not a flicker of hesitation. The doors part before her. The world awaits. And the queen walks away, crown intact, head held high. What happens when the past refuses to stay buried? Subscribe for more gripping stories of betrayal, redemption, and justice. Do not miss the next twist. Hit the bell icon now.